Hey, welcome back everyone. Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the process of drawing this character, and we're going to talk about wavy hair. So now this won't just pertain to wavy hair, it'll pertain to lots of different hair really. But what I want you to see as I illustrate this, and I'll narrate and explain over top, is that I first draw sweeping lines, okay? So just to show you off to the side, it's really kind of this thing right there. It's a real simple, repetitive thing in a lot of ways, but what I do to make it look not so repetitive, some will be more elongated, some will be more abrupt of a start curve and then a little flip. This actually was a longer one that flipped up right about there. And so I'll start by first sketching in this flow, okay, and slight overlaps, see how these kind of crisscross? So another thing you want to look for is in the negative shape, you see kind of an overlapping effect of this. It's really 1, 2, and 3 of these shapes that converge together. So this initially is what I do, and obviously you can, if you're doing like curly hair for women or guy with curly hair, real curly hair, not just wavy, you're just going to flip this even more. But it's really the way that you kind of interlock them. So let me show you a little bit real quick. So you're going to see as I illustrate through this, I just start, kind of drawing these sweeping lines, and I overlap them. I want you to know that I don't think too much about that other than that pattern and that wave effect, okay? It's not like I'm purposely trying to get just this right hair or fold or whatever you look at it as in just the right spot. That's probably what slows you down from being able to do an effect like this. You're going to get the rhythm and the flow of it, get that down, and then you're going to soft erase, and you're going to bring out parts of it by introducing shapes of shadows. And again, you're going to look for repetitive little, I see like V's and W's in here kind of thing, little humps of shadow there. This shadow to me means that this one's more raised up or thicker or thicker. And then the highlight means that's where the light source is. And it always seems to look a little bit better if you connect the highlights a little bit. See how those all kind of connect? And because if not, you get a lot of stop and go. And I think it destroys the effect that we're looking for. So anyways, I wanted to give you a preliminary concept going in. You're going to see the whole face drawn, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's move forward. Okay, so now we're going to start by drawing the Loomis method, and that's obviously a circle with a circle inside, and then basically using that to find 1/3 of the face. The ear goes in the lower quadrant of that divide that I made in the inner circle, and then I'll go right to sketching the perimeter or silhouette of the face. Now, for something like this, profiles, I generally would have just started drawing the face, but I know that's generally harder for people to follow along, so I wanted to show you. And there's times that, when I'm struggling, I go right back to this method anyways, but I wanted to show you the Loomis method because it's probably the best one out there for getting faces consistent. But just remember, it's really dividing that 1/3 of the face, the brow to the forehead or the hairline, from the brow to the bottom of the nose to the chin, and the mouth is generally a little bit closer to the nose than it is to the bottom of the chin. And make sure to tilt the ear, things like that. But obviously this is a very stylized representation. I didn't want to just start drawing hair and not give you the work that I did to get up to that point, which would be drawing the entire face. So, and profiles are really just a great way to practice things. I always feel like, and I mentioned this in a lot of videos, like if you're going for something a little more complex, but you're better at profiles, draw a profile version of it first and then go to draw the more detailed rendering. It seems like every time I take the time to do that, the more detailed rendering comes out more effortlessly. So yeah, it's always something I use to kind of warm myself up. But in this case, I just wanted to show you how to draw wavy hair. It's one of those things where it's just it's a pattern. Everything's really a pattern, I think. When you start trying to figure things out, you look for various patterns, everything from the way that you draw eyes, but definitely in things like, mesh patterns for weapons or different forms of hair, ribbons and clothing. There's just all these patterns. And for me, it's always easier if you figure out the that pattern that's recognizable to you, and then once you got that, it's I don't know, it becomes, I always feel like that's the part where I finally go, oh, I get it. I understand it now. But up until then, I'm kind of searching and just sketching along, and I don't really get it yet. And forgive me, this face is taking a minute to draw. I probably should have sped this part up even further. This is already 3 times, but maybe some of you wanted to see how to draw a side view of a face as well. You know, nothing wrong with that, right? But yeah, so while we're getting up to the hair portion of the video, I also want to let you know that we're going to be having David Finch on the channel, so real excited about that. And if you don't know, David Finch has been a longtime artist for Marvel, DC, you know, just a ton of great titles. He's worked on Batman, done some of the best Batman work out there. Fantastic, very accomplished artist. Worked with Image, and you know, I'm sure you know about David Finch. But what's also really great about this is he's doing a bunch of YouTube content. His channel's off to a, I want to say a roaring start, but he's been at it a while. He just took a little bit of a hiatus, came back. Now he's doing just some knockout content. It's been amazing to watch, very inspirational. And to actually have him on the channel here is just an honor, because he's somebody I looked up to for many years, and his work has always inspired me to become better, you know, to try harder. And basically, like, whenever I want to learn from somebody that does amazing shadows, really cool sculpted anatomy, great compositions, David Finch is the man for that. So again, it's going to be a real pleasure to have him on the channel. Now we're going to be doing art reviews, so make sure to get your artwork ready. It'll be next Thursday. If anything changes, I'll let you guys know in a post. But yeah, it should be a really good time, and we're going to critique your work or just give you some insights. So be ready for that next Thursday at 7 p.m. If you miss it, hopefully everything records properly and it will be uploaded to the channel so you can watch it later. Check in the description box below for details. So here we are at the hair finally. And so basically, notice that I'm just kind of doing those flowing, overlapping strokes going back. There are a bunch of, you know, you could look at it like a few things. You could look at it like fire, you know, like that's the same way I kind of draw fire. I do this wave overlapping pattern at real light, and you know, I'm using HB lead here, but generally I would use like a 2H or whatever, just to kind of lightly get in a flow and a direction of what I'm looking for. Now after I've got that in place, I can go back and start to shadow it. Now notice I even put that texture in and I went back to the face. I'm just going to admit to you, I'm still looking at it as I'm drawing areas that I'm more confident at. Like I'm texturizing and shading things that I don't have to think about, but I'm actually looking at the hair as I do this and just, all right, how do I want to shade this? Where's the light source hitting on? I have to think about it for a minute. You know, sometimes when you jump into a certain area too quickly, it might mess you up. Like, you need to analyze some of this stuff as well. Now, after you do it for so long, it becomes second nature and habit forming, and you no longer think about it. It's just like when you get a cheeseburger and you don't even have to think about it. You know darn well you're going to have fries and maybe a milkshake. But yeah, so here I'm going to start picking apart the shadows. And I also do a lot of crisscross and V-like, W-like shapes, like I said in the intro. Basically, I use that to kind of connect it together. So a lot of times when I'm drawing here, I'm thinking of like interlocking shapes. Okay, so I'm thinking of ribbons, overlapping ribbon shapes. I'm actually thinking of the volume of those shapes, not the hairs themselves. So even though I showed you that little curve line that looks like half of a figure 8 or something, or whatever, just that little curve with a flip, you can see it right there. Even though I draw those, I'm thinking more about the white part, the form, and I'm trying to just kind of get an idea for the way that I need to drop the shadows in to bring out that form. So just keep that in mind. I really want to stress that you want to stay away from thinking about individual strands and hairs, and rather volume of the hair. And I don't want to say clumps, but that's kind of the thing that's coming to mind. And then you want to separate that a bit. So if you're too consistent with it, it's going to look real repetitive and really flat. I felt myself doing that right about here. Like that's where I start making some thicker segmentations, you know, if you will. Like I'm trying to break up that monotony and that repetitive behavior because it's something I struggle with. I always find myself struggling with repetition. So I have to really fight that. And all you got to do there is say, okay, well, then I'm going to extend some of these curves out further. I'm going to roll a few down versus up. I'm going to have some curve up quicker than other areas, and some thicker, some wider. You know, you just on and on. You can create the variations that you need. And then as you render it, you want to just say, well, you know, light's not going to hit this entirely the same way. The back of the head's going to get less light, right? Obviously. Lower areas of the figure and the hair are going to get less light generally. So I'm going to shade it darker down there. And that just means kind of a reversal of what I did on the top, where the pattern's really the same, but the gaps of light, or the areas that are receiving light, are a lot smaller versus the areas on the top are a lot larger. And that's really it. That, you know, and obviously there's ways to simplify this much, much further. Like you could really take and you know, black out the whole back of the head and behind the ear and just shadow that one solid color, right? Black. A lot of art styles will do that, and then you can you know, bring that texture back and then fade it into that larger bulk of black shadow. So obviously that's going to make it a lot easier. And there's times you are going to want to do that. Real low light situations, you're not going to want to have light hitting the very back side of the head, you know, or whatever. You just have to think about the light source. And even right here, I just want to make sure that, you know, you're aware, like, I'm actually really struggling right here. This is a part where I started looking at it and going, oh, I think I'm losing it. Yep, I'm losing it. I lost it. Like I was, you know, it's like I got a flow going and an idea for how I wanted it to look. And everything was just kind of coming out and going with those patterns, those overlapping shapes, looking for those little V's and Y's and W's in there. And then all of a sudden, I kind of lost my rhythm right there. I might even erase again, I don't know. But I just want you to be aware of that. I want you to know that even though I've probably drawn this particular texture and hair 100, 500 times, I don't know how many times I drew it, a bunch of times, I still get to those points where I kind of go, oh, where am I going with this? Is it too much? And I got to step back and kind of reanalyze it. And then I might go to a certain part where I'm a little more confident and get that in and come back to it. In fact, that's actually what I'm doing. It's closer to the area that I thought was looking good, so I went up there to try to match that pattern. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a puzzle. I think, you know, you hear me say that probably a bunch of times on the channel. I think all this stuff is just one big glorified puzzle. You know, well, a bunch of little puzzles, I guess, but it's all patterns. It's all you know, finding what works within your own style, and then, you know, and exploring that and developing that, and then you know, eventually just you look back and you go, wow, I was totally doing that the wrong way, you know, and I've got a much better process for that now, a much quicker process, and that's really it. Like I truly believe that all of this stuff is just something you got to figure out, and then once you figure out what you're after, it just becomes really pretty easy. So hopefully this hair portion has shown you that it's not that complex. And I'm obviously going to go back and you know, keep picking at it and darkening certain areas. Now I want to say at this stage too, once I get that pattern going and that flow and some shapes with shadows and kind of my predominant light source figured out, I just go back and I keep developing those shadows. Like I'm real big on sculpting shadows. I never seem to think they're just right until I'm done. Like I just keep picking at them. I don't know if that's a good habit or a bad habit, but I always seem to do a little bit better once I go back and really sculpt them one more time. And I do that with hair, I do that with anatomy, pretty much everything. I kind of get the broad strokes in, and I always think large to small. And then at this point, I use the smaller end of the smaller eraser that I have on my mechanical pencil, sorry. And I erase back areas where I want the hair to overlap. Now you can do this with a drawn line, but I like to do it with the eraser. It seems to, I don't know, it looks cooler to me. In fact, like when I go back and I add these shadows right here, it actually started to hurt it a little bit. Like it was looking better before I did that. Like sometimes less is more, right? And when you erase these lines back, as long as the rest of the neighboring shadows, you know, kind of connect to it without drawing a line, you'll still see the line. You really don't need to add the drop shadow. It almost started to look more like I was trying to draw veins in the hair. So be careful with that effect. You'll see I kind of erase back and redo it. But the main thing is you can really erase it, and if there's enough texturing around it, you'll still see the line. It looks really good when a colorist comes through and like grabs those little strands and puts just the right highlight on it. It's actually a pretty neat effect. And that's it. I mean, it's just a matter of doing this over and over again, and then again finding your pattern. And remember, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. You're welcome to draw it just like this and do what you can do. But you're also welcome to just take what's here and then, you know, try different levels of these shapes. Like, they can be bigger shapes, which will give you a little bit more of an animated style, which is a great style. I've seen it done. It looks very cool when done properly. Or you can get ultra detailed with this. You can take what I did here and you can go really into those details and develop it a lot further. Totally up to you. So let me finish up by saying I want to really thank you for watching the channel and supporting the growth of it. You guys have been fantastic. I can't wait to bring you more new content each and every week. So make sure to subscribe, share the video if you don't mind. It helps the channel grow and keep on going. And more content's on the way very soon. So as always, good luck with your art. Keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.